And then there were 12. Good afternoon, race fans, and welcome here to race number 30 of the debut season of the PCSRA Winston Cup Series. More importantly, welcome to the first race of the second round. Getting set for today's running of the highpoint.com 420 laps of racing about to be run. And should be a fun race here today in this race. On the front row are the two drivers who were two of the four that were recently eliminated from the playoffs last week at Indianapolis. They were Kevin Joseph and Ashley Horton. Both of these drivers will look to finish what has been a very good season for them, looking for their second wins on the season. Betty Barrett, who punched her ticket in the next round, she is now fifth in the standings, which is good for her. And Luke Knight in the 40 on the flip side. Luke Knight still looking for his first win on the season. He is 20th in the point standings. As you look at the rest of the starting lineup, see where your playoff drivers are running. And let's get these cars going. Getting ready to go for 20 laps of racing. Let's tell you the 12 drivers that are battling for the championship still as we enter the round of 12. Cody Smart still the points leader by 7 points over Ben Tennyson. A Crenshaw is third, 10 points. She's tied with J TwoTwo. Betty Barrett with her win is only 11 points back in fifth. Josephine Bouvier, 13 back in sixth, 18 back for Elena Aurora in seventh. And then tied for 20th is Todd Montgomery, Vanco Seaman, Ponzo Albanus, Ashley Reynolds, and Hannah Smith. Those are your 12 drivers that are still battling for the championship. Last week at Indianapolis was our first elimination race. I've just mentioned Kevin Joseph and Ashley Horton. We saw the departures of those two drivers. The other two drivers that joined them were J Harvick and Samantha Grainger. So those were the four drivers who sadly had their playoff hopes crushed as they were the first four eliminated from the championship. And of course, they are looking to finish off what has been a very good season for those drivers. Of course, they will be going for wins between now and the championship race. And it should be a lot of fun here today. "20 laps of racing here today." We had two races this weekend, which we determined the Elite Eight for trucks and Busch. But those were elimination races. This one is the first race of the second round of the playoffs. And they're going to have a daunting task coming up. This race here today, next week's race at Lime Rock Park, and then our elimination race at Kansas. Green flag, we're racing at Pocono. Kevin Joseph for the Grainger Ford. Of course, he will be back in this ride next season. Betty Barrett coming to the inside of Ashley Horton, who was recently eliminated from the playoffs. Barrett was the highest starting playoff driver coming into this race. She comes in this race 10 points above the cut line when you look at the reformat points. Cody Smart is 20 above. 13 above is Tennyson, Crenshaw, Annie Crenshaw, and J TwoTwo. They're 10 points above the cut line. 9 above for Barrett. Bouvier is 7. 2 above the cut line for Elena Aurora. And then Todd Montgomery and the other drivers I've just mentioned, they are tied for that critical 8th position in the points. The thing for Barrett is that if she has a good run, she would end up taking the points lead heading into next week at Lime Rock Park, which, by the way, is our last road course race of the season. Season 2 of the Trucks, Busch, and Winston Cup Series was recently released. Which we're going to be going to a fun race in Asia next year. We're going to Twin Ring Motegi next season. We may also go to Paris next season, which would be good for Josephine Bouvier, knowing that she is the only driver from France in the field. That would be cool if we went to Paris. Ashley Horton in the 10 going underneath Kevin Joseph. These two were recently eliminated from the playoffs, so they're just out here for pride. And I'll just throw a disclaimer. I know Zachary Taylor is going to get tired of me saying this. If Taylor and Courtney Lynn did make the playoffs, they would have been the part of the four drivers eliminated. As Ashley Horton leads that lap. Oh, I didn't see Sean in here.
I just joined.
Yeah, Sean's here. Of course, he's the driver of the Sirius Satellite Radio Dodge. There he is right there, running in the, looks like the 6th position. A nice run for Senor Sean. Sean comes in this race 25th in the points. Still looking for his first win on the season. Still having a nice, solid run. His sister Jessie Art was recently eliminated from the Truck Series playoffs because she entered that race 19 points below the cut line 2 days ago, which theoretically she had to, quote unquote, be in a must win situation, which didn't happen. And so she ended up being one of the two drivers eliminated from the playoffs, the other being Harrison Jenkins, who also was recently eliminated from the playoffs. So, yeah, so that's a tough break for Jessie Art, who's going to try to finish out the 4 races in the Truck Series as best as she can. Ashley Horton still leads the race right now as things stands, as I'm actually going to pull up my running order. Betty Barrett, as things stand, she would take the points lead from Cody heading into next week at Lime Rock Park, which is only Winston Cup. Trucks and Busch are off next week. Because Trucks and Busch have their their first race of the second round, and Kansas will be our second elimination race for the Cup Series, which means when the checker flag waves, we would have cut our playoff field in half, which means we'll have another 4 drivers eliminated. Samantha Grainger not running well. A Crenshaw in 35th. Cody Smart dropped all the way to 33rd. Hannah Smith is in 30th, and Elena Aurora, Todd Montgomery is in 31st. So, and now it's changed again. So, now it's Ashley Reynolds. So, as of now, as we're at the midway point, Reynolds, Montgomery, Smart, and Annie Crenshaw, maybe Hannah Smith could be the 4 drivers in the danger zone heading into next week's race. Because here's the thing, Cody came in this race 20 points above the cut line. And with where he is running right now, I don't think he'll be safe as far as that's concerned, because that's going to be something we're going to have to keep an eye on. And of course, let me remind you, Samantha Grainger was one of Cody's drivers who made the playoffs. sadly got eliminated. As we're nearing the midway point of this race, Horton running up high. That's going to allow Betty Barrett to pass her because Barrett didn't run up high, and she's going to bring fellow Dodge Luke Knight with her as the 10's trying to fight back. The problem is she's getting out of the gray area. And Barrett has cleared the Valvoline Pontiac from MBV Racing. So new leader is the 1-800 call AT&T Dodge. Here's the other thing. If Betty Barrett wins, it doesn't matter what happens at Kansas and Lime Rock. She's in the Elite 8, believe it or not. And this would be her third win on the season she would go for, and more importantly, would punch her ticket into the Elite 8 regardless of the next 2 weeks. Because if any of our remaining 12 go to victory lane, doesn't matter what happens at Lime Rock in Kansas, you're in the Elite 8 either way. Then you have to deal with the Southern 500, Talladega, and our final elimination race at Homestead to determine the final 4 for Toronto. Betty Barrett fighting back, trying to hold off the lead. We're past the halfway point here in this race, and she got a nice run off the high side, and she will elect to keep the lead. This would be critical for Betty Barrett if she ends up winning this race. And she was the only playoff driver out of the 16 that we had going into last week's elimination race at Indianapolis rather, that won in that round and got her a ticket into the Elite 8. And she ended up getting another 5 playoff points. That would be critical for her to move on to this round. And of course, if she wins, that's 5 more playoff points going to the reformatted playoff standings, as Horton nearly put the fender and moved the 1-800 call AT&T Dodge out of BAM Racing up the track, but Horton just trying to finish her season with a win. Crenshaw and Smart have dropped back. Cody Smart and Annie Crenshaw, to be more specific. Not a good run for Maddie Crenshaw. So Annie Crenshaw could find herself in the danger zone along with Ashley Reynolds. And like I said, Cody came into this race 20 points above the cut line as far as the reformatted points came in. Oh boy, could we talk about our regular season champ finding himself in the danger zone heading into next week? With the way things are looking, let's see, who else would be in the danger zone besides Annie Crenshaw? Reynolds, Montgomery, possibly Tennyson would be the 4 drivers in the danger zone as things stand. Maybe Cody Smart. I don't know. Because remember, Cody has those 15 playoff points that he got in the regular season. That is what may or may not save him from possibly being eliminated 2 races from now. And remember, Betty Barrett is the highest of the playoff contenders. Right now, as things stand, she would end up taking the points lead heading into next week at Lime Rock Park, which means she would be sitting in a very good position to more than likely advance into the Elite 8. That's normally the ride Dylan Matthews would normally run, the 49. We're down to we're down to 6 laps to go. There's P Albanus, who made it into the next round of the playoffs. He would be second in points. According to my math, he's running in the top 10 in the 10th position, about to lose that spot possibly to Brad Lewis. J TwoTwo not too far behind him, running in 12th. See where the rest of our playoff drivers are running. Siemens 16th, Bouvier 17th, Jerry Harvick, who was recently eliminated. Hannah Smith running the Power of Pride colors on her Lowe's Chevrolet, running in 23rd. Right behind her is B Tennyson. There's A Aurora and A Reynolds. T Montgomery right also with those drivers. Brenda Eveling running the $1 billion Pepsi scheme on her DuPont Chevrolet for Hendrick Motorsports. A Crenshaw and Cody Smart running in last. Ugh. And of course, Cody made his debut in the PCSRA at Lime Rock Park, so it's going to be very interesting to see what this could mean for the driver out of Vermont. And for the 4 drivers that go into the danger zone, they're going to need a good run at Lime Rock Park, or find themselves heading into the following week's race at Kansas in a must-win situation. Still a good run for Ashley Horton and Kevin Joseph, who got eliminated from the playoffs. As we are nearing 3 laps of racing to go. Three laps to go. Betty Johnson running in third, so B Barrett still the highest of the playoff contenders. Regardless, she's going to be sitting pretty nicely going into Lime Rock Park. Of course, B Barrett has grown up on road courses in her country of Canada. Same with J TwoTwo, so Cody Smart running in last, not the run he is hoping for. He'll hope to rebound next week at Lime Rock Park, because he does not want to go into Kansas in a must-win situation. In fact, none of the 12 drivers that are battling for the championship want to go into an elimination race in a must-win situation to advance. And of course, when the checker flag waves at Kansas, we will say goodbye to 4 more drivers. As like I said, we will cut our playoff field in half from 16 to now the Elite 8 after these 3 races. Coming to the white flag right now, doesn't look like B Barrett might be. Well, Barrett is up there, possibly trying to get up there to get into contention. Remember, her goal is to try to advance into the Elite 8. These 2, on the other hand, trying to find out to see who's going to get a win. As the white flag's out, here comes Betty Johnson. She has not been to victory lane, Betty Johnson, that 22 machine. She is 17th in points. She is the highest of the drivers who did not make the playoffs. Down the backstretch for the final time. Johnson doesn't have any help. Johnson did not have any help from her fellow Dodges. Here comes B Barrett for second. This is going to be it for Ashley Horton. Tough break for Ashley Horton. If this was an elimination race last week, she would have made the round of 12. But hey, at least she is going to be happy to get her second win of the year. Ashley Horton will take the highpoint.com 400 here today at Pocono. And like I said, a tough break for her after just getting eliminated from the playoffs. If Pocono would have been last week, she would have been in the round of 12 and would have been in the playoffs. But what a great job to come back after getting eliminated from the playoffs. Don't think Ashley Horton will complain. Happy to see her get her second win of the year. She's now locked in the All-Star race for next season. B Barrett was the highest of the playoff contenders, so she will take the points lead heading into Lime Rock next week. Second place for her. Betty Johnson will get third, so the Betty and Betty show finished second and third. Luke Knight will come away with fourth. His teammate Ben Erickson fifth. Zachary Taylor, Courtney Lynn, great runs for those two. Courtney Lynn finishing behind her new team owner as Horton's going to go do a victory lap, which she deservedly does so. Ponzo Albanus was eighth. He was the second highest of the playoff drivers, so he'll be sitting in a very good spot going into Lime Rock Park. Kevin Joseph, great run for him after he got eliminated from the playoffs. He'll come away with ninth. And Senor Sean does better than Jesse Art this weekend, as Sean will come away in the 10th position. Good run for the driver out of Texas. Let's see where the rest of your playoff drivers, because I only see two in the top 10, Barrett and Albanus. Where did the other 10 finish? J TwoTwo 15th. This is the part where I start getting worried about these drivers who didn't have good finishes, I should point out. So J TwoTwo 15th. Vanko Seaman 19th. 21st for Josephine Bouvier. Hannah Smith 22nd. Ben Tennyson 24th. Ashley Reynolds in 27th as you look on down through the rest of the finishing results. As Ashley Horton just finished her victory lap, will now head to Victory Lane to meet with her crew, with James Inch and the entire 10 team. Lane Aurora 31st, Annie Crenshaw 35th, Todd Montgomery 36th, Cody Smart 39th. Yikes. That's not a good run for Cody. So those are... And Annie Thomas ended up finishing in last place. So looks like, according to the math in my head, I think the four drivers who find themselves in the danger zone going into next week, maybe Cody Smart, Todd Montgomery, Annie Crenshaw, and Elaine Aurora, I believe, would be the four that would be in the danger zone, unless I'm absolutely wrong as far as that's concerned. So those four drivers are going to need a good run at Lime Rock or find themselves heading into Kansas in a must-win situation. But Ashley Horton, 1 week after getting eliminated from the playoffs, will pick up her second win on the season. If you guys enjoyed today's race, be sure to give this video a like, subscribe to become part of the PCSRA crew today. We showed your full finish results. Your points and playoff standings are down in the description heading into next week at Lime Rock Park. Guess what? It's only the Winston Cup Series next week because Trucks and Busch will take an off week next week. We will go road course racing for the final time at Lime Rock Park. Then all three series will meet at Kansas. It'll be the first race of the second round for Trucks. It'll be the first race of the second round for Busch. It'll be our second elimination race for the Winston Cup Series to determine our Elite Eight. But until next week at Lime Rock, I've been Dean DeVola signing off. You've been watching another broadcast of PCSRA TV, where champions are made since 2010, 15 incredible years as the best center racing around the world since 2017. So long from the Tricky Triangle.